And that, my friend, is a comparison between the trailer for Shin Godzilla and Godzilla Minus One. Very similar. You guys can tell how they took inspiration from that specific trailer and sort of made it into a remix, or sort of took inspiration to make something out of it. Hello everybody, so this is RubiGamingx. Welcome to this video. Today's topic is going to be, what if there's actually two Godzillas? Now keep in mind, I haven't fully read the leaks from last year and the leaks that we have right now. I'm trying to keep away from them, but I do know a little bit of information coming from those leaks. Not knowing much information, this video is going to be fully speculation on my end without knowing everything that the leaks have already mentioned, okay? So keep that in mind. You might wonder what makes me think there's going to be two Godzillas without reading any of the leaks. The last shot from the trailer, Godzilla looks very different. Of course, I've already gave my opinion on what it could be. I gave you guys two opinions, but now we're going to take a different direction. What if there's two Godzillas, okay? What purpose does a second Godzilla serve? The obvious answer would be have a good and evil Godzilla. I think it's the most common thing most people are going to think. You don't want to have the same Godzilla represent two of them at the same time. It serves no purpose if both of them are going to act the exact same way, but causing destruction in multiple areas. For me, it would be more interesting if they made both of those Godzillas different between each other. Perhaps personality-wise, both of them are going to be different from each other, but more interesting would be to give it a visual difference with their body, with their abilities, and what they have to offer on this specific film. It's a good way to tell them apart and a good way for people to remember which Godzilla was which. It's important to prevent any confusion when people are watching this film in case they are exactly the same. I think that's not a good idea. Personally, I would switch both of their designs or have one of them look sort of similar but have a major difference that tells you, okay, this is the good one and this is the evil one, or whichever, right? Now, the second option would be, if both of them are going to be similar, one of them has to serve a reason for the other one to continue its destruction or continue the movie, right? I think maybe if one of them was to be the older version and one of them was to be like a younger version or something like that, right? And perhaps it's already old of age and maybe humans killed it with the oxygen destroyer. It's like a movie. Because of a certain death, it gives the other one motivation to continue its revenge path or a different path, similar to a hero and villain type of movie. When you look up to somebody that is your mentor and you see him getting killed, or that specific person getting killed, what happens to you? It changes your personality, it changes your view. It either motivates you to continue a good path, or you either take the dark path of destruction. And obviously this movie is taking place post-war. It's going to be a very sensitive topic for people in Japan, for people in general, how harsh this movie is going to be, and all those feelings that everybody is going to feel. I think that they're trying to recreate the original Godzilla, and knowing that the original Godzilla was very successful in Japan and around the world because of how visually it changed the cinema, right? How the story was very emotional to those people, touching their hearts, touching the livelihoods that they lived during those times of Japan going through devastation and multiple things. And again, I mentioned in my previous video that this movie has a different type of tone. We know that the MonsterVerse Godzilla is our hero, whereas this one, he appears to be the villain. Now, if they do go between good and evil route, then I think one of them is going to be similar to our MonsterVerse Godzilla from Legendary, where one of them is supposed to represent the force of good, and the counterpart could represent the evil force. Like I've mentioned on the previous video, perhaps it feeds on all the sadness, everything that Japan lived, and somehow he absorbed it during the explosion or the events from Japan when the nuke went off, all the radiation, all the hate, all the sorrow from those people went into him, right? Creating that evil, mutated mind and mutated body of Godzilla. I think that would be an interesting take as well, to see both forces go at it and just have humans reflect on their mistakes. Again, I think this is a great opportunity for Japan to really impact humans as a whole. What happens when you don't learn from your mistakes? You keep repeating them, right? History repeats itself over and over. Their mistake, or the mistakes that happened in the past, was nuking Japan, right? So naturally humans are going to think, okay, Godzilla is a nuclear monster here to punish us. But the way that I see it is, nature is always going to be right. Nature is here to teach us a lesson, to learn from our mistakes. What if humans are going to repeat the same mistakes, trying to kill Godzilla with the oxygen destroyer, or trying to use another nuke? What happens? History is going to repeat itself. That's not the path that humans are supposed to take. And Godzilla is that reason. Godzilla is that lesson for humans to forgive, move on in life, and become something better for the human race. Instead of attacking and killing what we see as a monster, maybe try to understand it, maybe try to feel what that monster is trying to tell you, right? If that makes any sense. Would this concept be totally new to this film? Not exactly. I mentioned already in my previous film, there's been attempts and we've seen similar Godzillas face off against each other. Not exactly the same race, but we've seen it with Godzilla Final Wars. You have Godzilla against Zilla at the time. You have Mecha Godzilla against Godzilla. Godzilla against Space Godzilla. You get the idea, right? But we haven't truly seen an equal Godzilla face against his equal counterpart. Or in this case, evil versus good in the same body with different abilities, with different minds, representing different forces of this planet, okay? So I think, yes, this would be interesting. It would be totally an interesting take and something fresh for Toho to touch if they do it correctly. Now, if you look at the film, it's giving you a very dark tone. You're looking at it from a point of view of humans, or like a third person point of view of humans, what they've been through, right? You saw in the trailer how Godzilla was literally killing people with his destruction, probably stepping on them, knocking down buildings while there's humans on top of the roof. And that's very deep. Again, I'm not sure if this is going to be rated R. I doubt it. I wish it was, but I really doubt it. Here's why. Shin Godzilla had a lot of blood, a lot of disturbance scenes, and yet it wasn't rated R, if I believe so. Honestly, the only way I see this movie becoming rated R is if we see Godzilla actually biting and eating humans, picking them up with his bare hands, crushing them. You see the guts, legs, pieces of humans, and he actually eats them. Or if you have very horrible, heartbreaking scenes where there's a lot of, graphic type of blood within those scenes, very hard scenes with radiation, with the nukes, stuff like that, then I do see this movie becoming rated R. But again, we haven't seen everything, and I don't think this is yet hitting the rated R type of area. I believe it's still going to be PG-13. In my eyes, if everything is done correctly with this story, human story, the monster story, the visuals, and the tone of the music, if it's done correctly, it has potential to really retouch what the original Godzilla did back in the classic days, right? But today we're living in the modern era. I think it does have potential. And looking at the trailer, of course, I believe the movie has been already done for about a year or so, or a few months. It's already been filmed, and I personally think, just looking at the trailer, it looks phenomenal. There wasn't a scene where I thought, oh my god, that looks so fake, that totally looked like CGI. I think they really nailed the CGI. They nailed the tone, the colors, and the music especially. obviously Shin Godzilla vibes as the beginning of the video shows. That's really great. I really love what Toho has done. Let's give you guys an example. Looking back with Shin Godzilla, there were certain scenes where you could tell that the city was props, you know, just a fake city that was built in miniature size and they had like a suit on. That's what I mean by CGI and actually using like props and certain things like that, like Toho used to do back in the days. This is what I mean by this film. I didn't detect any of that. I didn't detect anything that looked way too CGI. And when you're doing a film like Godzilla, you want to focus all your budget on making it the most realistic as possible, to not make it like other films where you can totally tell the monster doesn't fit the size with the city, or you can just tell they're completely off, you know? That's exactly what I mean. I think they really nailed it, but there's more to be seen. Obviously, with more trailers, we're going to get an idea if they did use actual props, if they did use like miniatures, a combination of both. I'm sure they did, but still, with how far technology has come, I think Toho really did a great job, and we'll just have to see. One of the things that I hope they don't really do like they did with Shin Godzilla is use the old sounds. I know it holds a special place in people's heart, but personally for me, watching Shin Godzilla using like very outdated sounds really made it very hard for me. Don't get me wrong, I like Shin Godzilla. It's one of my favorite monsters from that time, but just the sounds really turned it off for me. It made it kind of boring in a way. It just didn't fit the modern era. So I really hope they use original sounds, good music, because music and sound is very important. Well, they're basically the same thing. In other words, you really want to hear the original sounds that come out from those planes, from those AA guns, the turrets. Everything has to be fresh and original, right? You want to feel immersed. You want to feel like you're actually in that era, not living and just reusing the same sounds that they used for the original. I know they're supposed to take place in the same era, but still, I would like something more modernized that is more realistic. Because let's be honest, those explosions don't sound realistic, and you get the point that I want them to use realistic explosion sounds and just overall make this film very dark as possible. I'm touching this point because this film is going to have 4DX or 4D. If you know what that is, it's where you go into a theater and your seat moves based on the environment, based what's happening, and it also has effects. We've been having this for quite some time where I live. It's coming out for other countries, but not all theaters or some of the countries don't have this yet. But the idea is, if there's a scene happening underneath water, right? There's splashes, explosions. You're gonna get splashed in real life with water. If you're in a boat, imagine that, right? You're gonna feel the movement of the boat. If you're taking hits, you're gonna feel the hits. If there's smoke happening in the scene, there's going to be actual smoke. So the idea is for the X to feel more immersive, realistic as possible, for you to feel like you're actually in those moments, living it in real life. That's the point. And I guess it just depends if you like it or not. Would I like there to be two Godzillas? Absolutely. Why? Recently, it's been a trend that every single Godzilla in every film usually has a different form. We've seen it with Shin Godzilla, Godzilla Ultima, we've seen it with Godzilla Earth. Similar, we've seen it with the legendary Godzilla. From the regular, he goes to supercharged, from supercharged to burning Godzilla. I think at this point, any Godzilla that comes out, it's going to be a tradition that he has to have a second form. And that's of course something that I talked in my previous video. If this actually does turn out to be a second form, then it does look to be like a golden type of Godzilla, almost like a burning golden lava type of Godzilla, I guess. But his whole body, instead of having that red aura, it's full of gold or yellowish, if you want to call it that. For me, it would be a nice change if they step away from that where Godzilla just evolves, or he has different forms, different abilities, I guess, as a form to change his body. I think it would be a nice touch if they stepped away from that and actually do something new where we actually see two Godzillas battle each other for different reasons, or perhaps one of them just becomes mutated and one of them is fully how he's supposed to be as Godzilla. Of course, there's many possibilities, and I haven't read the leaks completely. I've mentioned at the beginning, and I mentioned in multiple videos, I know a few leaks, but I don't know everything. And I've been told in the comments down below that there is supposed to be two Godzillas, and it does appear like that. If you really analyze the trailers, there's hints of two Godzillas. Closing off this video, let me know in the comments down below your thoughts. What are you expecting for this film? Would you prefer for Godzilla to have a new form? Would you prefer if there's actually two Godzillas? Let me know what you're thinking. Are you excited for this film? How did you feel for the first trailer? Is the tone correct for you? Are you feeling disappointed? Were you expecting something else? Or is this living up to your expectations? This is RubiGamingx. I'm out. I'll catch you guys next time.